Hey guys, welcome to the Turbo V6 YouTube channel. I dropped off the manifold at a local engine machine shop and had them resurface both of the gasket surfaces and also the throttle body mating surface. So I got that back, and as that was pretty much wrapped up, I also ran to the junkyard to grab some wiring. I figured it'd be cheaper to just scavenge some throttle position sensor and idle air control motor wires because they need to be extended. I figured I'd just go grab new wires rather than trying to splice my old ones and extend them. Well, just wasted probably a bunch of time. Probably could have got it on eBay. But I wanted a spare 4.3 wiring harness and computer. This is like the last one. Everybody's jacked all of the computers and just cut the end of the wiring harness. I'm disgusting. So see if there's anything else I need. So in the process of that, I actually wound up cracking my GoPro screen, and kind of put me out of commission for recording videos because I really didn't want to do it on my phone. So to catch you up on what I did since then, I pretty much got the manifold wrapped up. I drilled and tapped the other two spots for the throttle body. And as you can see down here, the gasket surfaces are freshly machined. So super nice. I also used the manifold to mock up for the fuel lines. So here's what I believe is all the fuel lines I'll need to get everything connected. I actually got a new fuel filter, so I'm going to replace the fuel lines basically from all the way from the gas tank all the way up to the manifold. That's why there's so many fuel lines here. I'm just going with -6. It was enough before, but you know, we'll see if it's enough. I also have my new injectors. So these are Snake Eater Performance 1500cc injectors. So I was using 80 pound/hour injectors, which I still have, but I was getting close to the max, kind of like 80 over, a little over 80% duty cycle on E85. So I wanted to have a little bit more headroom, especially with the new manifold. I'm really hoping that it picks up a little bit of power up top, so I'll need the extra fuel. And then also, once I get to the point where I'm upgrading the cam and potentially, you know, building a motor, I don't want to have to buy injectors again. So I figured I'd just do it once. That should, you know, cap me out for quite a while. The one other neat thing that I did was I just put the intake manifold on this weight scale that I have compared to the old cast iron marine intake, and I'll do it again just to show how crazy the difference is. So got the scale zeroed out here, so we'll throw the new manifold on. You see I can pick it up with one hand, no problem. So 16.6 pounds for the fuel rails and the manifold and the mounting hardware for the fuel rails. So, you know, very light. I believe the manifold before I cut it up was probably around like 18-ish pounds. So I cut a couple pounds out, you know, from the center section. So let's get the marine intake. 2 hands necessary for this one. Whew, yeah, so barely shy of 50 pounds. So, you know, saving 30 pounds minimum. So really the next step, I believe I have all the hard parts pretty much figured out. The next, you know, thing, I pulled the wiring harness off of the truck and started tearing it down. Started killing my back, so decided to set up, you know, a folding table in the garage. So now I have a folding table. You can see here, all the way back here, I got So you can see in here I have the adapters to go from the quick connect to AN line, and I have the hot wire kit in here with Walbro 450 pump in the stock fuel basket, so just replacing all the fuel lines. So I decided to spend a little extra money, and I bought myself a Fuel Lab fuel filter, and then also the got the new Motion Raceworks flex fuel sensor mounted up. So really, I think it's time to start buttoning a few things up on the manifold and then install it. Put the distributor back in, make sure everything's sealed up so I don't drop anything in the motor anymore, and get the wiring figured out. Well, there it is, finally installed. First time I dropped it on there, I don't think I had enough RTV, but I should have probably just went with it because this thing moves down quite a bit when you tighten it, so probably would have been fine, but just for security, put a little extra. I don't think any of it's gonna squish out and go into the motor. If so, it's a stock motor, so who cares? So next thing is to put the throttle body on, and then really I think I can toss the wire harness back in here and measure for length. So it's about dinner time, so I think I'm going to eat and I'll come back out afterwards. Making more progress. Got the wire harness strung up in the engine bay, modified it a little bit, but just finalizing the lengths for the injector pigtails. Relocated the flex fuel sensor down underneath on the Motion Raceworks bypass adapter, so I had to extend those wires. So I think I'm pretty much ready to pull it off, finalize the connectors, and then pretty much just put it back on after I try and tidy it up, loom it, and then yeah, I think I'm done. So might be able to get the wire harness done today, so at least I'm going to try. So we'll see how far I can get, and then after that really it's just I got to connect the fuel lines up, make sure there's no leaks, and then maybe even fire this thing up. Might happen this weekend, so a couple days. But yeah, I'm loving it. It's looking really good. I'm excited to get it fired up. It's been way too long. I've had the truck down for probably at least a few months now, so the weather's getting nice and I'm ready to get back to the track. So we'll get back at it and jump back whenever I'm a little bit more along the process. Well, I pretty much wrapped up with all the wiring changes. Sadly, I ran out of tape, fabric tape, which is what I like to use on this. I think it looks good and, you know, still can pull it off without making a gooey mess. But I'm gonna have to wait until Amazon delivers it in a couple days, so this is gonna have to wait until then. So I started to jump on to something else. So the radiator needed modifications because the stock upper inlet to the radiator was a funky size, so it was difficult to find a radiator hose, and I didn't really feel like adapting. This is the water neck that I'm going to use, and it's 1.5 inch. It's really low clearance to be able to fit underneath the throttle body. So I basically needed to update the radiator to be 1.5 inch on this side. So, but yeah, I already got it set up and cut to the right length, and I got the hole drilled out to the larger size. So I'm going to try and get this welded. It turned out alright. Definitely not my best welds. Trying to weld something round like this is a little bit of a pain, but it turned out good enough. Shouldn't have any leaks, so one other job done. Okay, got my fabric tape in and loomed up the whole wire harness, so now no crazy exposed wires except for this one. I'm waiting on a new IAT sensor connector to come in, and then I'll shorten this based on where I wind up putting it in the charge tube. So yeah, I think it's ready to slap this thing back in. Alright, I believe I have everything hooked up wiring wise except for the air intake temp sensor. Okay, got the fuel lines all hooked up. Did a quick test, cycled the fuel pressure, cycled the fuel pump, and looks like no issues. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna button the bed back down and yeah, bolt everything up. Once I get that buttoned up, I have to connect the starter back up, and then I think it might be ready to test fire. So getting real close, so we'll see what happens. Well, it's time to try and start it. So I got the old inlet pipe connected up because it has air intake temp sense epoxied in, which I'm going to change to the new one. I'm going to thread it in there so I can replace the sensor if it goes bad. No fuel leaks, so that's cool. I got the fuel pressure set with the new fuel pressure sensor. The coolant line, I'm going to have to get that welded up. I'm going to make an aluminum one, and then I'll be able to run it up to operating temperature. But until then, I'm just going to start it up, make sure everything's good. Hopefully there's no vacuum leaks. Yep, forgot to plug the injectors in again. Alright, so I pulled the wiring harness off to check some wires, and I really don't think that that's causing my issue. So I'm going to wrap it back up and reinstall it and hope that I can replace the ignition control module and get it to run. I think that's probably it. I have no idea. It seems like a common problem for these 4.3 V6s. They're fairly expensive for this little tiny module. It's like 80 bucks. And I'm hoping that's it because I really have no idea what else could be going wrong. So whenever that comes in, maybe in like an hour or so, I'll run up to the parts store and grab it. Alright, so I figured out it was my mistake. Nothing was bad. Ignition module, I believe, is still good. Coil still good. I put the wire for powering the coil in the wrong spot. Somehow it was still getting 12 volts, but when cranking, I saw no spark. So, stupid mistake on my part. So I'm gonna have to just wire wrap a couple things I took apart to diagnose and toss everything back in its correct position. Lower the truck down, open the garage, and we'll go for the first startup. All right, I think we're ready to start it. So we should have spark this time. Hopefully my startup tune isn't terrible. It might take a couple cranks because it's still like 50% ethanol. So let's give it a try. Let's go, first start. Killed it, trying to give it some throttle. Okay, I think that's enough. Started to smoke out of the coolant, so I don't want to run it too long. I don't want to put too much heat into it with no coolant. So it runs. Woo! Yes! Okay, now that I know the intake is working, I'm going to start mocking up the radiator hose that I'm going to have to make from here to the modified water neck or radiator outlet or inlet that I welded. So this is both 1.5 inch. I actually bought some 1.5 inch aluminum, so I can just couple both ends and make a hard line however I want. And I'm gonna also have to redo the intercooler lines or intercooler connections because the throttle body's in a totally different location now. I think I'm actually going to swap the inlet and the outlet on the intercooler so that it makes it a little bit easier to run the lines or run the tubing. And so yeah, now I just got to start mocking that up, and I'm going to have to get that welded. Okay, well I think I got things mocked up pretty close. I'm going to be able to reuse this pipe just in a slightly lower location. This used to come out and go into the top of the intercooler, go across, loop over here, and come out the bottom. And I think I'm just going to flip that and have the turbo outlet go down. I'm going to have to cut maybe like a 30-degree cut, and then there's a 90 to go into the bottom. And then I think I'm going to have to buy another small straight section of 3-inch so that this works out coming out here. I'm not decided where to put the blow-off valve, so I should have enough clearance to do something like that. That makes the radiator hose pretty easy. It looks like it'll just be this piece. I'll just cut it shorter, and then I can use this full silicone hose to keep some flexibility in it. And then yeah, I got to reuse this 3 to 4 inch or 3.5 to 4 inch coupler, and then I just got this taper down from 3.5 to 3. So I'm going to order another 3-inch straight section. Hopefully that'll come in quick, and by the time that comes in I should have pretty much everything mocked up. Probably be able to finish that bottom piece because I have some extra 2.5 that I can use from this to weld that up. I don't have to grind the powder coat off. We'll see how that goes. I've never done that before. And then I'll probably just spray paint it black. I'm going to leave this raw aluminum. I think eventually I'm going to wind up replacing that lower part and maybe even the intercooler. I feel like this is a fairly small intercooler core, so once I start to up the power, that turbo is going to run out of capacity, and so will that intercooler, I imagine. So yeah, I think that's probably good enough for this episode. I probably have a ton of footage to edit, so I'm going to try and get that done. And then hopefully in the next few days, I'll be able to get everything I need to wrap this thing up and take it for a drive. So thanks for watching. Give it a like, share, subscribe if you want to see more. But thanks guys, we'll see you later.